I know. I already sort of explained this topic in the perfect sequel Fear and Hunger 2 tournament video, but I sort of wanted to refine my opinions and make it its own video. I've also learned a few more things about these Moonscorch, so I want to incorporate these things into this video. So even if you've seen the first video, this will have some more stuff than I even had in the original videos. This will also explain what moonscorching is, and a little bit about just moonscorching in general. So with that out of the way, let's get started. What is moonscorching? Moonscorching is an illness presumably caused by being exposed to Rare's light in some way. Well, who is Rare, you may ask? Well, Rare is the moon god in the Fear and Hunger universe, so just being exposed to his moonlight can cause this. Well, it's sort of up in the air. I believe it can be caused by being exposed to the moonlight in places where Rare has influence, such as Priheval. The disease has been around since at least the 9th century, however under a different name until very recently. It used to be called Moonlight Cancer. In the first game, it's mentioned a few times in the Voltail fight. So, what are the symptoms? Well, according to Dan's diagnose skill, the outside of the body appears to be burned, having discolored burns all over it. However, at the same time, it's like they were burned by something cold, as the bodies also show signs of hypothermia. The skin is usually extremely dry, cracked, and even falling off. Facial features are also usually distorted, having the eyes fall out, as well as the facial skin stretch and just fall off in general. However, there is a slightly different type of moonscorching that is seen in the contestants of the Tournament Festival. Why is it different? I honestly don't know. It could be people partaking in the Tournament Festival are in close proximity to Rare, so they get an advanced form of Moonscorch. We really don't know why. However, this advanced Moonscorch is different. It usually shows no signs until it's too late, and seems to be tied to the mind much more, as some people can sort of snap out of it. Snapping out of it can save you from the Moonscorch, even if it is just a little bit, as we see with Henrik on day 1. However, at the end, right before moonscorching, it is described that there is an unbelievably strong urge to scratch and rip your skin off, as it feels like there's something right under your skin fighting to get out. It feels like something primal is telling you to shed your skin, and then you'll transform. Basic moonscorching has this feeling too, but it seems it's much more gradual as opposed to the advanced moonscorch, which happens all at once. In this advanced moonscorching, it isn't as simple as being burned by cold light, but instead you turn into the reflection of either your worst fears displayed on your own body, or a reflection of your mental state and feelings. So in a way, it makes you a monster of who you already are. This advanced moonscorch can enlarge body parts, incorporate items the person has on them, and even grow metal-like growths on the body. The moonscorching takes place over a period of 3 days, or at the very least that's the longest it takes for any person in the Tournament Festival to turn. It can take anywhere from a few hours to 3 days, as it seems most people turn almost immediately, and some people keep their mind for days. However, it seems the weaker the person's mental state is, the faster they turn. A theory worth mentioning that I heard in Dino Solik's video called Fear and Hunger 2 Termina Is the Music Good Part 2 video is the boss fight with Rare in the ending of Ending B may actually not be you fighting Rare at all, however, it could be your character symbolically fighting off the Moonscorch, which I think is a really cool theory. Also, my thumbnails on this video at one point, so that's pretty cool. We're going to be talking about this advanced moonscorching in this video mostly. As the title states, we're going to be discussing the specific Tournament Festival contestants' moonscorch forms. Like I said earlier in this video, I believe that these advanced moonscorch forms are a reflection of the person's innermost psyche, whether it be a fear or who they actually are, or something like that. I also really love this concept. In fact, this is my favorite part of Termina. I think the idea of this and the writing and creativity put on display here is absurdly well done by Mira. So let's get into each contestant and what each form means and where to find this moonscorch. Let's start with Levi. Levi is an ex-child soldier. He clearly has PTSD and struggles with it. If you don't play as him, he will always have a heroin dependency as a result of his PTSD. Which, I mean, can you really blame him? Who knows how many people he's killed that he didn't have anything personally wrong with? War is hell, some people say, and Levi's moonscorch embodies that sentiment quite well. Levi will always seem to be in some sort of trouble if you aren't playing as him, whether it be him being scared by people, or him about to be killed by Kagura, or being in withdrawal from heroin. He seems to not really be in his right mind from the start. On day 2 evening, he will be in front of the orphanage moonscorched, or on day 3, he will be in the orphanage moonscorched. His moonscorched form is him naked, but with a growth seemingly around his face and gun, seemingly forcing him to be constantly aiming down his sights. He will cry and shoot and nothing else. This is one of, if not the easiest moonscorch to kill, And that makes sense, because I think he's really not doing that good in the first place. What this form symbolizes on Levi is quite obvious. He is a faceless soldier, having no life other than killing others, and being depressed about that, pretty much. He doesn't really have anything else. The growth covers his face and forces him to be constantly aiming down the sights. So now he literally can't do anything other than shoot others and cry about. This is pretty depressing and pitiful. This form is also based on the manga, and I know I'm going to butcher this name, Jagan, where the character known as Shintaro Jagasaki can transform, and he has a form that looks very similar to this. And Miro has confirmed on Twitter that this is what this Moonscorch is based off of. In combat, the Weeping Scope isn't all that dangerous. He'll either cry, which does nothing, or do a big line of bullets, which is a little dangerous, but there isn't a ton of damage being done, making this an easy one to deal with if you really need to do it. Abella is up next. Now this one doesn't have a definitive answer, so I'm just going to theory craft here. Abella is a mechanic, and is very useful as a party member. She's strong, and she's extremely versatile. Her Moonscorch form is Shognar, a muscular, seemingly male-looking mechanic with an elephant for a face. In my first video, I said I was pretty confused by this. However, Shognar is apparently a Lovecraftian creation. It is a vampiric elephant, which is obviously the inspiration here. But why a male form? Abella is obviously female. Well, my theory is that she feels very manly, not in a good way though. She is in a very stereotypically male-dominated job. I think she feels like she isn't feminine enough, or she feels like she isn't in touch with her feminine side. Like I said though, I don't know for sure, and I'm kind of just reaching. There's also a possibility that has to do more with the Lovecraft elephant, but my understanding of Lovecraft is surface level at best. I've read The Call of Cthulhu and The Shadow over Innsmouth, and that's about it. To add to the whole male-dominated feel thing, the growth on her face that looks like an elephant also bears a resemblance to an enemy early in the game that's sort of close to where you fight Shognar. If you've played Terminal at all, you are aware of the Woodsman. No, not that one. Yeah, that one. He has a growth on his carnal area, I guess? No, it's not his penis. It can detach and grab a party member's face, making them useless for the rest of the fight. And they look like this. Then Shognar looks like this. It looks very similar. It's very possible Abella went into the direction of the Woodman and got grabbed by his appendage, then went to the first bunker in the forest. Abella also moonscorches very early. If you saved Henrik on the first morning, Shognar will be in Tunnel 7 from the very beginning. She has a very annoying move called Doomsday Trumpet. If you get hit by it twice, it's an insta-kill move. If it only hits once, it'll cause nausea. However, it is easier than most Moonscorched. Osa is up next. Osa is a yellow mage who always wanted power. He has used the gods to gain his power, however he wants to be the one in control. Osa's Moonscorched form is called the Mastermind. No, not that one. I promise this joke will land at least once. This one I also really had no idea about in my first video. However, I have heard that this form shows Osa's fear of being controlled, which it appears the growth on his head is controlling him like a parasect. Well, this shows his fear of being controlled was exploited by the Moonscorch. Something else to note that is kind of interesting is that unlike most playable characters who tear their skin off and scream when Moonscorched, Osa goes into the Lotus position. It could be a god is communing with him, or he could be freaking out and trying to calm himself down while transforming, as the Lotus pose is a meditative yoga pose. The Mastermind also looks a lot like a mumbler in the first Fear and Hunger game, which the followers of the God of the Depths, which I guess now they're the followers of God of Fear and Hunger. No, not that. Oh yeah, that one. The Mastermind can be found in Mausoleum Alley on day 3 night only. Like all yellow mages, he will cast Hurting when you try to get near him, so you gotta rush him down. He can do pretty much the exact same stuff as normal Osa can do, but he can also do Mischief of Rats now. Olivia is up next, and this is my favorite one. This is the one of the Moonscorch that I was talking about earlier that has seemingly metallic growths. Olivia is in a wheelchair, and she feels it is her whole personality. It's obviously not, but she feels it is. This Moonscorched form is the Mechanical Dance, which I don't get the name of. A large metallic machine. When asked, what happened to you? The Mechanical Dance will say, I've always been this way. This indicates that the wheelchair is the first thing Olivia thinks people see about her. She thinks she is her disability, and it is who she is. It's a very depressing thing, and it's probably the worst fate that could have happened to Olivia in this game. As being absorbed into logic, and the A ending is, I guess, okay for her as she's reunited with the sister, and the B ending has her overcoming her disability and learning it's not all she is. Despite her killing everyone, but that's neither here nor there. She can be found in the museum on day 3. The wiki says this may be because she is gravitating towards Logic, who is under the museum. Logic used to be her sister, so it's possible that there is some connection with both of them being pseudo-machines here. One thing I also want to point out is the bottom half of the mechanical dance is the pyramid head of Pyramid Head. Or at least it has the same design. Here, look. Dan is next. Dan is depressed and empty. He lost everything and he has nowhere to go. He lost his wife and father-in-law, his only real family to the sulfur cult, or at least so he thinks. He is in essence an empty slate. He also has the empty soul. It seems that he becomes Pocket Cat. Pocket Cat is an entity that worships Rare, the moon god. However, how Pocket Cat works is very weird. I should really make a video about Pocket Cat, but it seems Pocket Cat possesses people who are completely empty with nowhere else to go so he can give purpose. Whether it be a physical infection or something only people who have Moonscorch can do, we really don't know. Then what happens to the body of the old Pocket Cat? Does it die? Does it still exist? We don't know. Let me know if you want a video on Pocket Cat. You can find Pocket Cat Dan on day 3 morning in the museum. Marina is next. Now, we get to an interesting subject here. Marina was born a male. She was, however, raised as a girl, as every firstborn male in her area becomes a dark priest. Her mother, however, wanting to save her from the violent life of a dark priest, raised her as a girl to her father's dismay. As once her father finds out, he constantly misgenders her. However, her father does love her in some way, despite being a not-so-good person. When Marina moonscorches, she becomes the cocoon. This looks a lot like normal Marina, however, her head is in her groin and this cocoon is sprouting where her head is. This cocoon is implied to hold the remains of her father. This cocoon is obviously sprouting from her groin. The cocoon is also on her back, technically, making her literally carry her father's expectation. Her moonscorch form will appear on day 3 night only, and it will be in the secret passage in the Church of Alll-Merr. She can engrave herself and the cocoon as well in her fight. Depending on which god she engraves, it will give her a different set of moves. Think of Hui in League of Legends. Either way, she's not that easy of a fight. Karen, the journalist, is usually calm and collected, which makes sense why it takes her so long to moonscorch. She's a war journalist, so a lot of people think she's profiting off of the soldiers that die in the war like a vulture. She, however, will say that she thinks of them more like Valkyries, carrying the hopes and dreams of the deceased. Her moonscorch form is pretty self-explanatory, it's just called the Valkyrie, where there are a bunch of monsters on its back. This is kind of on the nose. She can be found on the island on day 3 night. There will be a boat that only spawns on day 3 night, and you have to take this boat to the island to fight her. She fights with these guys on her back that are in the late part of the game. This one's quite a challenge because you can only fight it alone. It obviously is a little easier with ghouls or blood golems, but it's still pretty hard. The last of the playable characters is Marco. Marco is a boxer and a criminal, though not because he wants to be one, but because he was forced into it. His sister fell in love with a hardened criminal who gives favors to Marco despite Marco politely declining. This criminal eventually holds these favors over Marco's head and threatens to kill his sister. Marco, enraged, kills this mobster. Marco is a really big guy, so it makes sense that his moonscorch form is called the Giant. The Giant is a big monster that looks like it's choking someone. I've heard a couple different theories on what this symbolizes. I've heard that this could symbolize that he feels like he has hurt his sister by his life choices, and he's strangling her with what he's done. Another theory that I thought of myself is that he's strangling himself. If you've played as Marco, or had him as a party member, or even just interacted with him, you know he's actually kind of a good guy. He's nice and caring, he's a really good dude. This giant could be his outward persona, strangling his real personality. I kind of expressed this in my first video. Marco can be found in Rare's realm in the White Mold Apartments on the 3rd morning. It is one of the largest amounts of health of all the Moonscorch, which makes sense. It can be quite tedious, once again, especially if you only have one person. Now we're on to people that you can't play as that are still tournament contestants. However, it should be worth mentioning that both Pav and August cannot moonscorch. They will always die before they moonscorch. Anyway, on to the 4 contestants that you can't play as yet. Tanaka is a businessman. That's like his whole personality. However, from what little we do know about him, his father is overbearing and wants his son to be very successful and does not give him a break. Tanaka didn't get a choice of what he wanted to do with his life. It was chosen for him from birth. When he moonscorches, he becomes Judgment, the name of which makes no sense really, to me at least. However, the appearance is pretty easy to decipher. There's glass all in his body. What do we know that has to do with business that also has to do with glass? Well, the glass ceiling. Glass ceiling is a business term that means the barrier that makes it hard for women or minorities to advance in companies. I believe Tanaka is Asian, so it would make sense that he has the glass ceiling broken on him. This is in the 1940s, after all. Racism is pretty rampant. So he broke the glass ceiling. He also has what seems to be a BDSM whip. I really don't know why he has this. I guess it makes sense because he's whipping his employees or his underlings. He can be found in the museum if he somehow hasn't already died by day 3 night. He can also be found in the White Mold Apartments if he was training with Marco. Henrik is a cook who isn't really much other than an ordinary guy in a bad way. He's a fence sitter, and he does everything he can to be a gentleman and keep everyone happy. And guess what? That's exactly what his moonscorch form is called, the gentleman. He is surprisingly not hostile, like all the other moonscorch contestants. I believe he is non-confrontational to a fault. If you're like me, you didn't even know that this was Henrik until researching it. I thought this was just a fucked up looking dude and pretty evil. He will be in the mansion if you saved Abella day 1, however, he will be in the mansion on day 3 if he had lived till then. He is weirdly dangerous, however. Both of his arms actually have a decent amount of health. The knife arm can cut off limbs, which is annoying, and the fork arm can do tons of damage as well as infect you, which is annoying. Sae-Marie is this goth girl whose backstory really doesn't matter too much, because her moonscorch doesn't have too much to do with it. Sae-Marie's moonscorch form is called dysmorphia. This refers to body dysmorphia, a mental condition where the individual thinks they have flaws in their body and appearance. Nothing directly says she has a problem with her body, but we can kind of infer this. She will also say that this is her true form and she is radiating now. So it's possible this is how she feels she should look. Sae-Marie can be found in Rare's realm in Alll-Merr's church. The final person is Kagura, who is a really bad person. He tries to SA Abella, even. He is also a gangster. He also tries to kill Levi several times. He also tries to kill Karen. He's just a bad guy. His moonscorch form is pretty fittingly called the Monster. He looks like, well, the Monster. He looks like a big ball sack looking guy with a lot of arms. He now looks like he is what he is on the inside, a monster. It could also be said that he looks like a ball sack because of his many evil sexual things he's done. He is also, in my opinion, the most annoying moonscorch to fight, because he can be in 2 different locations, both of which being in the sewer. So just walk around in the sewer of shit ton until you find him. Well, that's the explanation of all the moonscorch forms, and just moonscorching in general. Let me know if you have any more topics you want me to cover in Fear and Hunger, and I appreciate and love you all.